Hello and welcome back. This is the Mountains Garage YouTube channel, and today, as usual, or majority of the time, we're talking about Turbo 400 stuff. Every week, a certain amount of hours I'm going to dedicate to visiting random neighborhoods, or in this case, an island, to drag home cores, and other ones are going to show up that need love. So that's a normal week for me around everything else I do, and I'm okay with that. A lot of people ask if I'll do other transmissions. Yes, I can. I don't really want to. I can't keep up with the Turbo 400 stuff as it is, and that's okay. So I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. I get a lot of questions daily, nightly, whenever, and if I get the same question 3 or 4 times, sometimes it's subjects that I haven't thought to cover that well, so other times there'll be bits and pieces. I may sound like I'm repeating myself, but I probably am. So let's get at it. See what's happened this week. I'm stripping this Turbo 400 today. Looks like somebody did a decent job building it. I can't wait to see inside. I don't know who built it until I see this. There's a half a tube of silicone holding that pan on. That pan would seal probably without a gasket, but definitely with a gasket. Sealer is not required. Now I got to try to get it off there without breaking anything because it's cemented on there. I could hit it with a sledgehammer and it probably wouldn't move. Between that and cleanup, this will probably waste an hour of my time. Oh well. So in this situation, I take my favorite paint scraper that you can hammer on. Super thin, I got it razor sharp. And you just drive it in on the machine surface and keep working your way across until I can fit the next thin, substantial prying device and get it popped off there. This transmission smells like an electrical fire. It's somewhat brand new. As typically happens, I don't know the whole story as to why it's here, other than they want it to shift automatically. It has a vacuum modulator and a manual valve body. If you see anything wrong, immediately, I do. I hate this dipstick anyway, and all versions like it. There's nothing holding it in the transmission, other than luck and some silicone in this case. The full mark is a full 2 inches below where it belongs. You suppose that's why it smells burnt? Looking at the transmission right off the bat, it has an aftermarket separator plate. And the interior of the transmission's been soda blasted, which usually means it was built not as a hobbyist, probably from a transmission shop of some sort, probably bought online, I don't know. But I'm sure more details will emerge as I take it apart. A decent job was done cutting the bell housing off. It is an 8-bolt case. Has a Ford JW bell housing, which, believe it or not, wasn't full of silicone. It just had the O-rings, nothing on the bolts, and there was also oil dripping out of the bell housing. So, putting the new pump puller to work. It's a one-handed affair. Works pretty good. So I'm on an island in coastal New Hampshire, hunting the elusive TH400. I'm probably lost, but it's really pretty. How about some road salt being unloaded here at the seashore? Watching that loader at the top of the pile makes me realize some men are braver than I am. So I made it back home. This is an 85 two-wheel drive. It's a C30 with a big block 454. If it didn't have a tag on it, I would obviously use the tag down here, but just by looking at it, I can tell you that the single stud mount was 80s square body, obviously a two-wheel drive, bolt-on yoke. White modulator I've seen on both the 6.2 diesel and the 454, so 7.4. All in all, a good find. Didn't leak a drop in the trunk thanks to the pacifier my buddy John built. Sent me a bag of them. Thank you for that. It looks relatively original, but you never know till you take it apart. And to further my belief that maybe it is all original, the owner of the truck it came out of helped me load it in the trunk. So he claims the truck rusted out and he saved the transmission and the engine. Another clue I always go by when I'm looking at cores is if a transmission has been torched out, it means it was probably running in a vehicle and it was taken out of service for different reasons. If you come across one that every fitting and bracket is missing and everything's been swapped over to the other unit, good chance it was replaced because it wasn't working. Last week I made a trade for this 1977 PC code Pontiac transmission. PC would be a Grand Prix or a Le Mans station wagon. It should be the identical 8-bolt case to the one I just built, my personal 475 transmission in the series we did a month ago. That's my roll around stool making the noise, but in 1977 that's what the HD case was reduced to. It's not quite as robust as the earlier ones, but it should be a good core. Now I traded a 4-wheel drive 480E transmission for it even. It's not a wise trade. Just the direct drum for a 480E 34 element, which this was a 2004, so guaranteed it was, is going to cost upwards of $200, and that's all I want to pay for Turbo 400 cores. I try to buy all the ones I can for $200 or less. This morning I just paid $175 for this. And I probably could have insulted the guy and talked him down, but I find that a bargain at $175, especially it seems to be a worthwhile candidate to rebuild. So, but this trade was my idea, I think. I don't know. We got talking back and forth, and he said he was looking for a 480E, and I guess I just figured it was better than money at that point. It was one of the ones I have in my tractor shed. There's 3 more out there, plus all the ones in the box of 480E cores that I need to do something with before winter. So it was one less I had to deal with, and one more 400 to do something with. So that's that. It's done. It's here. The biggest bummer about the trade on this Pontiac transmission was we met about halfway between us at this drive-in hamburger joint type place on a Tuesday night after Labor Day. I figured they were closed. I got there and it was packed. Smelled really good, the fries and hot dogs and stuff, and I didn't have time to eat. I had to get back to go to Cub Scouts. So sometimes that's the way it is, but I'll go back another night when they're open and have a snack. Another common thing I find with mass-produced or production line transmissions is the use of aftermarket bolts. You know, I'm a one transmission at a time guy, so I can methodically clean the original bolts, or I have buckets of original bolts. They don't have time for that. I completely understand that. The function's probably the same. But you'll find many times aftermarket bolts inside, and you'll get half and half on the valve body like this one. There'll be some original, some aftermarket. Whatever they got to do to get the job done. I do find it interesting. This had red choline that are somewhat smoked, but this is a direct drum stack, 5 clutch. Count the steels. They got steel on the bottom next to the piston, which is normal, up against the pressure plate. Because the stacking was wrong, they got metal on metal. I mean, it'll run like that. They're both lugged into the drum, but the purpose of these super thin red stuff is to get extra clutches. They didn't accomplish that. So I'm not a big fan of the reds. I'm not sure. I'm on the fence. I'm going to build a transmission. I have enough used ones. Like these might go in the used pile. And, just for fun, build one, see how it lasts. The black choline salt treatment seems to transfer onto the red clutch. These look pretty good this side, but there was one burnt one. The intermediate, definitely not so good. There's one black one right there. But I don't know how much transfer is normal. Have to measure it up and see what goes. So, but in this case, seeing how it smells so bad, I'll probably put a set of fresh clutches in it and Put these in the too good to throw away pile. It kind of surprised me, but I get asked a lot, and it's a logical question. How do I clean the parts? Well, the most efficient way, because I hate doing it, I spend too much of my week cleaning parts. Like this transmission here, like I mentioned, it's definitely built on a production line. It's been soda blasted inside. So you know at one point this looked like my Swamp Monster Pontiac transmissions that I've been stripping in a video series if you want to go watch them. Because they're getting cores from all over the country, loads at a time. They've been sitting outside. They got water in them to make them look presentable, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. I would soda blast if I had a way to do it. But they get all the areas. Sometimes they'll cheat, like they won't take the Park and Paul guide off, and the other side will be all rusty, but this side will look brand new. This was not the case on this one. I don't know who did this, but it ends up, a nice looking unit. But how did I clean this? This was all painted. It's hardly been run. It's been run, but not very much. I know if I put this case in my Rotojet, which I'll show you in a second, it's going to eat this paint off, half of it, and I'll have to manually scrape the rest of it. It's a 2 or 3 hour ordeal to make the finish look good again. So in this case, I was able to do all my case prep, get all that RTV off there that was done in the pan, all the Loctite out of the bolts for the pump. They glued on the governor cover pretty hard. I do all my case prep, and then I just went outside and simple greened it and blew it off. I did it twice, and now it looks fantastic. It's all dry, and I'm ready for assembly. If I strip and clean any one of these transmissions in this pile, I'll have a nice result. It'll look like this. It'll be weathered looking because it's had salt and everything else in this part of the country, but just like the one next to it, it's ready to accept paint once I'm done modifying it. It's perfectly clean. It'll absorb paint and stick, and you'll never know that it looks kind of brown. If you wanted this bead blasted, you could, but not necessary. So this transmission is ready to be modified, cleaned, and put back together. Inside will look fantastic. When it comes out of my ViroQuip automatic parts washer, Rotojet is another brand. It's kind of like the dishwasher. You have it, you put your stuff in there, it spins around, has jets on the side and top. It gets hot, and it does a fantastic job. I probably told the story. When I got it, the pump was bad, but I had to figure that out first. I called this number. There's another number on the back, or maybe inside this panel. They 2 different phone numbers, both go to the same lady's desk. She knows everything about this machine. She walked me through the diagnostics, and I ended up buying a pump elsewhere, but I did from her buy a spare heating element and soap and all kinds of stuff, so I have spare parts. Fortunately, I haven't needed it. When I got this and brought it home, it had brand new water and soap in it. I pumped it out, changed the pump, and then pumped the fluid back in, and I've been using it ever since. I throw some soap in it every now and then. It's powdered white looking caustic stuff. It's just been a great rig. It's the belt that spins the table down here needs to be replaced, but that nuclear looking sign, you can watch it spin as long as you don't jam up the rotor pot. It's all right. One of these days I expect the case to fall down and make it stop spinning and finish burning the belt up, but so far so good. I throw all the bolts in this dunk basket, an actual basket to go in the Rotojet or the ViroQuip automatic parts washer has a lid on it to keep stuff from flying out. I don't have any issues. I run the plastic tube and everything, and nothing flies out of there, so it works pretty good. But before I had the rotary parts washer, and even before I had this parts washer, I would hand scrape, go to the car wash, whatever I had to do. Getting this red parts washer, which the fluid's underneath, so the tank is dry, well, dry-ish, it's wet, and the fluid's running, obviously, but you're not sitting in a puddle of fluid, does a great job. Now, when I filled this up in the 90s, when I bought it, I bought the Vasol, which is a solvent for cleaning, and then I cheaped out and threw in 5 or 10 gallons of kerosene. That was the biggest mistake I've made, and I've hated this because of that ever since. Instead of being clean, it always smells like heating oil. and it still has an oily presence. That was a mistake. So someday when I change the fluid in this, which I haven't since the 90s, I will not dilute the Vasol or whatever brand of cleaner I put in it. So I should put that on the list. But after all the methods I've mentioned of cleaning parts in the last couple minutes, everything before it goes into the transmission gets hit with brake parts cleaner and blown off or just allowed to dry by itself, because this will still remove another film of dirt, blackness. So after I'm done with this, I feel that it's clean. I'm not sure the camera did justice to how high that pile of road salt was. There's a giant ship next to it, and there's a giant claw unloading the ship, and then the loader stacking it. Not only that, there's a dump truck hauling it in from somewhere, maybe another area on the site, probably several dump trucks, but I watched that guy drive up the salt pile. Now that stuff doesn't pack that hard. Brave men next to the ocean. Hey, they're probably used to it, and every day they wake up, just like people that work on bridges and skyscrapers and stuff like that. I'll stay here safely on my rubber pad and try not to fall down. Thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe. I'm sure you already have, but tell your friends. Sign up your grandmother. I'll catch you in a few days. Take her easy.